we're now going to switch to the charter market. This panel was actually going to be moderated by Doug Gullen of Private Jet Card Comparisons, but his dad's not very well, so I'm afraid you've got me. If the panel would like to come up, we're delighted to have Saskia from Avanode, Greg from Tivoli, Patrick from Jet AI, Joe from Levo.aero, and actually we've got two Joes, and Joe from UAS International Trip Support, who wins the prize for being on stage first. Okay. Hi, how are you doing? Good to see you. You too. Right. Shall we start with the idea of this is attracting charter customers, looking at ways of new technology. Shall we start with quick intros? Joe, have you got a mic? Do you want to go first? Do you want to do a quick intro? Not that you need one, but let's do you know, this is not your first rodeo.
No. My name is Joe Mogenberg. I've been in this Part 135 space my entire career. Started out in the aircraft management business with EJM. Went on to sold that to NetJets. Went on to work as president of NetJets for a number of years, and then in the 1996, 1997 timeframe, started a company called Argus International, which I recently sold, and Levo is my my new venture.
And what is Levo?
So Levo is a enterprise resource planning software that is really focused on the small to mid-size Part 135 operator. What it does is streamline the whole process of booking and quoting, and it makes the whole experience for not only for the Part 135 operator, but for the Part 135 operator customer, very, very seamless and very easy. Along with that, Levo also has a B2C marketplace that focuses on the retail charter user. So it's a software process and platform.
Saskia, I think everyone knows Avanode, but let's have an intro.
Do they know, aside from the Slido that we sponsor? Just to make sure that everyone knows what we do. So yeah, technology company, been in the business for over 20 years. Global marketplace, B2B is where most of our customers know us for, and I think we're actually in good company of most of them are customers. And we have a payment platform as well. So we help our customers work smarter in the charter space. We try, at least.
Patrick?
Yeah, so my name is Patrick McNulty with Jet AI. Was previously with Honda before I came over to Jet AI. We have kind of two sides of our business. One side, we have the aircraft side. So we have 3 Honda jets, a CJ4 and a King Air 350 that we do jet cards and charter on. Then the other side of the business, which is the AI portion as well, we have a booking platform called Charter GPT, as well as a back-end software for operators to help fulfill their empty legs called Reroute. So it's a pretty unique business because we're we're operating with aircraft, and we're also utilizing that knowledge that we have to help develop software both from a B2C and a B2B platform.
Greg?
Well, I've always had one foot in IT and one foot in the aviation industry throughout my career. I had a stint at FedEx where I ran a team that did sort of no-holds process improvement across the FedEx network. From there, I found my way into the charter industry where I founded a digital charter broker called One Sky Jets back in the early 2000s. That sold to Sentient. Just fast forwarding, I ultimately became the chief technology officer for Directional, FlexJet, Sentient, that group of companies, and from there launched a company called Tivoli, which is what I do today. Tivoli is all about digital sales enablement within the charter industry with payments as its foundation. We've been growing pretty darn quickly. I won't throw stats out here, but we're pretty happy with how the platform has grown today and excited to talk about how we help attract charter customers.
Your hobby is also tracking charter flights, isn't it?
Yeah, I do that too, right. Yeah, I have, I guess people think it's kind of, I don't know, ironic or geeky or whatever, but I have a rack of servers in my basement, and for a couple decades, I have archived every piece of data on every flight flying over the U.S., so I've got a little data geek in me that does that as sort of another part of what we do at Tivoli.
Jay?
Good morning, everyone. Joe Radowski, and actually, this is my first CJI event, even though I've been flying for 48 years. So I've been involved in all sorts of aviation, business aviation primarily for the last 20-some years. So I am with UAS. We do international trip support. So we see all the new policies, we see all the needs, and we've got a large group for about the last 25 years. We have a big footprint in the US, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. So we see what's happening with about 450 employees.
And I think on the last panel, we had someone was giving the example of how hard it is to fly between Macau and Hong Kong and get slots. Although it's a lot easier now, but that's the bread and butter for UAS, isn't it?
And that's the, thank you, and that's the good point. Just this morning, I had a call. They need to go into Gabon, Africa, and someone else needs to go into India. And they're like, we've never been there, help us out, what's involved with permits, what's involved with embassies, what's involved all the way around. So UAS will be that group you can reach out to for charter, and we also work heavily with a lot of military and diplomatic flights. So we're well versed in a lot of different areas.
So I think the reason we want to go this session is that I think there's a general view that charter's still pretty complicated. It's still difficult to, it's hard for someone who's never done it to understand all the different things involved, and the technology, it keeps promising a lot. Saskia, Avanode has been doing this a long time, and you've built an amazing marketplace. Is charter still complicated?
I think it depends. I mean, yes, you already started off. It is still complicated. But I think we're getting smarter at it. I mean, that's our whole pitch, is that we can make it smarter by technology, but there's still so many touch points that go into making a trip happen. I think at some point we interviewed a bunch of operators and brokers, and just being able to get to the point of booking, there's like 42 touch points going back and forth between the end clients, between the broker, operator, and even taking out a broker. There's so many things that need to be confirmed and steps that need to be done. So how do you automate that?
And Patrick, you're an operator who is also trying to come up with solutions. Is it more complicated than you guys thought it would be?
Yes and no. Yes and no. That's one of the things that we're looking at with a lot of our software is trying to automate some of those steps. And, there's another part of this as well that to talk about is, the education on the front end as well with the customers. And, when we're looking at, like say our Charter GPT platform, we have a large language model attached to that to help with, kind of educating those first-time customers. And then, on the back end, it can be complicated for sure, and there is a lot of back and forth, but we look at things like reconciling contracts between the operator and our customer, and those are some of those things that with the technology that we're developing can help somewhat automate that process.
Joe, what are the problems that stop charter? What are the big issues that stop charter being as easy as booking an airline ticket?
Well, it was discussed earlier about the fragmentation and mystification. There are so many folks that just don't understand and know where to even turn to. So we try to make it more of a relationship type of a business where word of mouth does a lot of work for us. There are so many challenges. People just don't have the knowledge. Just recently, a gentleman in my hometown in Melbourne said, hey, I'm flying first class all the time. It's great. I don't know anything about the charter. It must be too expensive. And basically just had to sit down with him for 2 or 3 minutes, let him know what was involved. And now he's partied up with one of his friends, and he's starting to fly almost on a weekly basis. So it's really the education and the promotion that has to be out there. And I'm not sure if it's the SEO through the web that has to be out there, but people just need to know it's approachable and we can get the information to them. But so many people just have the reputation that charter is too expensive and there's too much involved and there must be a jet card involved and they have to have a membership. So I hear all these fragments coming together, and when you just sit down with them and just let them know through education that there is help out there and someone can do that for you, just reach out to the local airport and ask. Or in my case, I'm always available and I try to help everyone that comes to me.
But I think the biggest barrier is you've got a lot of relatively rich people out there who don't want to be embarrassed by asking for the price for something they can't afford.
No, and actually I'll dispute that one. They always think that. And then when you sit down and they realize, hey, you know, I'm taking 3 or 4 members of the family somewhere, and hey, we like to travel first class, look what the price is. And then look at the time, and a lot of these people that I'm dealing with are the business person, and it's time. And they're like, hey, if I can get there quicker, I'm in.
No, I'm agreeing. I think they're the ones who book. But I think you've got probably, for every one of those, you've got 9 who assume they can't afford it. Joe, do you agree with that thesis that there's a whole audience out there at the total addressable market, as everyone likes talking about, of people who just don't realize they can afford to fly charter?
Well, yes, they don't realize that they can afford it. I just read something recently that since the year 2020 up until now, the number of millionaires in the U.S. has grown by over 20%. So there's a lot of people out there that can afford to charter. I think what happens is that we just make it so complicated that, like you mentioned, the 42 touch points. What we're seeing is that dealing with the Part 135 operators, they're very, very inefficient. They need to streamline their whole process. So the 135 operators need to do that. They also need to start focusing on building their own book of retail business. Now, I have a lot of friends in the audience here that are brokers, but what we found is that there's a sizable market of charter users that want to deal directly with the operator. They want to shorten the lines of communication. So I think that we've really made the industry has really made the Part 135 booking process much too complicated.
Greg?
Well, I think that one of the challenges is we don't want to use technology to generate a race to the bottom on price, right? And there's a lot of technology out there that's like, let's show them a pretty picture of a plane and a price, and let's see if we can get a charter consumer to kind of book automatically that way. And I think that is counter to what the product is really all about. I think that as we develop technology to create efficiencies, because there is a lot of opportunity to create a more efficient marketplace, from start to finish, we have to also be focusing as much on the actual experience. When I talk to operators and brokers, there are crazy things that people should be thinking about that they're not. If the plane has an entertainment system on it, are you talking about what movies that your clients, want to watch? Do they like, this, that, or the other thing, because let's face it, it would be trivial to be able to provide that entertainment on the flight. It doesn't happen most of the time. Ken mentioned yesterday the challenges with catering. That's a big deal. So if you, as a provider, a broker or operator, can figure out how to up the game there for your clientele, you need to factor that into what it is that you're selling. And then when it comes to what we can do digitally, it's like, how do you communicate those unique attributes of your given service, right, through a digital platform so that someone can see, the difference between 2 or 3 aircraft that look the same, the pictures are similar, and the prices are $10,000 or $15,000 different for the same trip. How do you help a customer understand what that is? And I would say that technology is really more of a co-pilot, to a great sales team, and that, the right technology can help generate that initial lead and start to build trust with a customer, but the complexities around the actual transaction, it's an event, right? This isn't just buying a seat on an airliner. There's so many attributes, beyond just the, getting on the plane and going from A to B that, hand-holding and a great sales team should always be part of the process, in my opinion. Now, whether that's at the operator or the broker is, debatable. They'll be both.
So we've got a really good audience question saying 42 touch points, which we were having a similar thing about touch points during COVID, but I think that was a different flight commercial. How do you imagine providing very special, very customized service while reducing touch points?
I think technology comes into play with that. But I think there's something different between, I don't know if anyone here uses GPT. There's things that you can do to work smarter. It doesn't have to be 42 touch points, but it doesn't mean that you need to take the human touch away. I think there is an opportunity, something what Greg touched on, like being different, differentiate yourself, is that concierge type service that your customer is going to want. I was reading on I can't remember if it was LinkedIn or a Facebook group about how awful communication had been between a buyer and a seller. And I think communication is so key. It doesn't really matter how that is, if that's an automated email or a text message that you have installed, or if that's you calling. It is also listening to what your customer wants. Like, what does your customer need from you? And that sets you apart. And that's what ultimately is going to make you retain your customer. Because you just spend a hell of a lot of money probably on obtaining that customer.
Well, I'd jump in and say, there's a lot of discussion here and in the world at large about artificial intelligence. An awful lot of the work going into artificial intelligence is about, squeezing out cost and creating efficiency, but yet we're selling one of the most expensive products on the planet that's also perishable and has a lot of complexity to it. So what we want to employ is actual intelligence. An airline is going to want to employ artificial intelligence to reduce the number of call center agents. We should never be thinking about doing that, because let's face it, Siri and Alexa and all these other bots that are out there are trying to emulate a human. We need to be better with the humans. That's why I'm a big fan of artificial intelligence being a co-pilot to great salespeople that helps deliver a more customized experience. Right? Our technology should be, how do you deliver the extra special thing to the plane? I know in my past experience when I was running charter sales, one of the first things that we did in every first conversation, customer would call us and say, I want to go from A to B next Tuesday with 3 people, what's the price? We trained all our salespeople to say, before I get to that, tell me a little bit more about the trip. And 9 times out of 10, and I said, I don't care how awkward it is, wait until the customer says something about that trip, because what they tell you there will help you customize the experience. And we would send, toys to a plane if they were flying their kids. We actually had a customer that we had an issue with FedEx. They didn't get the candy to the plane that their kids were used to. We had to send like 10 times that candy to their house afterwards because they were so trained to do that. But that's how you create a customized experience and build a relationship, something above and beyond. So there's a lot of places to help use, have a more intelligent CRM and a distribution network that allows you to customize your trips. That's where I think the energy needs to go when we're talking about, deploying technology in our space.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what you're saying. 100%, it's the relationship. We always do a pre-trip briefing to make sure we understand so there's no real surprises that go on during the trip. 100% got to have that relationship, got to understand what they're trying to do. Then use the technology to help streamline the process of getting the trip developed.
Joe, is there a conflict between digital marketplaces and online demand and customization?
Well, first of all, the technology is there now that the charter customer can get online, can check the availability of an airplane, can do almost everything before they have that one-on-one conversation with the actual operator. As it stands right now in the industry, there's always the broker in between. So, what we've found is that there's a lot is lost in between that whole process of going back and forth. The technology is there, and I think as time goes on, we're going to see the Part 135 industry becoming more and more like the 121, as far as booking and pricing and everything else.
Saskia, do you agree?
I was actually reading the other question already. Sorry, it was an interesting one. Can I answer the question that
Which
was
one
on the
are you gonna
board?
answer?
Well, it was specifically for Saskia, 10-year plus user, essential tool to my job. When is Avanade going to update the way we present and police aircraft pictures loaded into the system? And what went into my head is like, it is still so surprising to me that you're joining a marketplace and you don't want to update your pictures. Like, you're selling something, you're paying someone. This is a marketing tool essentially as well. So why would you not have updated pictures in there? So I guess it's on us to continue updating and educating our customers as well of the importance of that. However, you are in the business to sell your aircraft. So I would also hope that there's some ownership and that you understand why you're joining a marketplace. So yes, I will continue to educate our operators, but operators here in the room, you should really update your picture. You should have a picture up there as well. So,
Patrick, there's one here for you. Many are trying to solve the empty leg demand and supply puzzle. Technology may help, but is there an actual market for what is essentially standby flying? Jesse's asking you.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, we have all of our customers that are, flying ad hoc charters, but the next question out of their mouth is, hey, do you have any empty legs? So, there's always someone out there that's looking for better pricing for their trip. And, if they're flexible enough to be able to not have to go to a specific time and a specific date, they're a great client for someone who wants to do empty legs. So, let me go to the first part of this puzzle here. So many trying to solve the empty leg demand and supply technology may help. Yeah, so if you look at what we're doing with our reroute, and I'm trying to not make this a sales pitch, but there's a lot of empty legs out there. There's hundreds of lists out there with empty legs. So with our platform, what we're trying to do with the technology side of that is taking a look at all of those empty legs. Someone can actually come in and almost look at it from an ad hoc charter standpoint. Example being empty leg from Teterboro down to West Palm Beach. Well, maybe the request is going from White Plains over to Fort Lauderdale. So we'll take a look at all of those empty legs that are out there and being published and try to match that as best as possible to an empty leg where it would be minimal repositioning for the operator. The thought there is that, and again, everyone has a little bit of different definition of what an empty leg constitutes, but there's probably this gray area between what that empty leg pricing is, what a full ad hoc charter pricing is. There's that gray area that, we think with our technology that we can help both the operator fulfill that empty leg and increase the revenue, as well as the customer, potentially getting a better pricing on a trip because it helps bring that aircraft to its next place it has to be.
Joe, how many hours of your life have you spent trying to solve empty?
Well, that's Jesse is asking a really good question here. It is very hard to find a charter user that has not been disappointed with the whole empty leg booking experience. And the reason being is that an empty, and we've done lots of research on this. Some operators, when they have a potential trip from point A to point B, immediately they start trying to sell that empty leg. Well, the flight isn't even confirmed yet, but they put the empty leg on, and then a retail customer will say, "Hey, great, that's a perfect trip for me. I'll go ahead and book that," and then the first leg of that trip gets canceled or doesn't get scheduled in the first place, and then you've got a very, very pissed off customer, and that happens a lot. What Levo does is we don't put any empty legs on the site unless it's been that first leg has been confirmed. So you're not going to see hundreds, thousands of empty legs. You're going to see maybe hundreds, but they've all been confirmed trips. There's an actual flight going from point A to point B, and then then it is available. So the empty leg process right now is very inefficient, and it really just upsets a lot of people.
Well, I mean, you have to unpack it, because I think there are three categories of empty legs out there. You have the phantom empty legs, where somebody creates an empty leg hoping to book that so that then they can book a second empty leg and turn it into a round trip. I think that's a dysfunctional behavior that, creates all kinds of problems, because you book the first empty leg and you can't actually fulfill it until you find another one. So there's that kind of challenge. And it doesn't mean that saying, hey, I want to sell you a one-way trip with some strings attached isn't a bad idea, but when you as the consumer don't know what's going on, or when we as the industry can't tell the difference between a real empty leg and the phantom empty leg, that's a problem. The other thing is there's so many people that say, oh my gosh, 40% of the planes are flying empty. Well, come on, we all know that that's somebody counting flights, and they're counting all these flights that are going from White Plains to Teterboro, and like a huge chunk of the empty legs are actually what I would call unsellable empty legs. They're just local repositioning of a few tenths of an hour, and unless we're trying to stimulate a bunch of millennials that want to get selfies of themselves on a jet, I would discourage that market.
And
right?
hit the bar. You can still hit the bar on a White Plains to Teterboro flight.
Yeah. Anyway, and then you have real empty legs, right, where you have a booked flight for some on a route that's saleable, and that's a real market. It is a real market, but the transparency there isn't probably what it should be, and I think there is an opportunity to do better with technology to kind of surface what's real with the right rules around it, and I think there are a lot of people trying to do that.
Joe Barber at Clay Lacey is saying, is there a similar industry case study where a dispersed and shared economy has successfully simplified and controlled the buyer's journey? And what can we learn?
Yeah. I mean, Airbnb and VRBO. I mean, if you just want to really call it out, I think the charter industry has more similarities to that industry. I mean, if you look at VRBO, I mean, let's face it, most of the charter industry is managed assets. And VRBO is all about, or Verbo, I guess they call it now, is more about, having either a management company or you as a property owner, finding supplemental income, for that property. There are a lot of similarities there. The supply side of that has gotten, fairly sophisticated. The challenge is that actually the demand side and actually sign up for a house is much easier than the charter transaction. So it's a lot easier to just shop online, take a look at the pictures of the rooms, get told the address and sort of check in. It's a little harder. So I think, it has more of a real estate dynamic to it, where because the transaction is a little more complicated, we need a little more hand-holding, but there is a lot we can learn from say, a Redfin / Verbo type experience.
Jay, booking directly with an operator versus going through a charter broker, which is better and why?
Well, the pros and cons, definitely. But I got to tell you, with the charter broker, we get contacted quite often, and they want to get the pricing. So I know a charter broker is out shopping, and they take a lot of different elements into play. Of course, the financial aspect is always there, but that gives us a chance to go ahead and tell a little bit more about what we offer. And if somebody goes direct, it's usually, hey, what's the price? And okay, thank you. But with the charter broker, I get a chance at least to educate a little bit so they can go out and educate for us. For example, we offer supervision, in-country supervision, and we provide security if so needed for the aircraft and crew. And I get a chance to have that dialogue. Maybe it's more of a relationship with the charter broker. And so they can go out and they can tell to the majority of the people what is available, at least through our operation.
Patrick?
Yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons to both, right? I mean, with an operator, they're going to put that use specifically on their fleet. So that kind of reduces options a little bit, especially depending on where your mission is. Much to Joe's point over there, with a broker, you can really educate and find the best option for somebody beyond just, one operator. So, yeah, it really depends on the client and the customer and what they're looking for, I think. But, just from a standpoint of flexibility and, inventory, I think the broker is probably, the better option for most customers.
Well, there's a third option, and that's the brokerator, right?
Sorry, what?
The brokerator, right? Brokerators, operators that have brokerages.
Yes.
That's the way I see one of two things happening, depending on the operator and their particular propensity for generating demand. On the one hand, they may say, I'm happy to just be a wholesale platform and let brokers, drive all my demand. I love the relationships with brokers. And then we're seeing more and more operators that are saying, hang on a second, if all I do is quote, the folks that call me retail when I have an aircraft available, then I'm losing them to a broker who can satisfy their demand when my planes are booked or whatever, and they're waking up to the realization that they should really serve those customers 100% of the time, which is the brokerator. So, at any rate.
Yeah. I feel like in a response to that, a lot of brokers ended up acquiring certificates to address that specific.
So there are brokers that have acquired certificates, and there are operators that are splitting their sales team and saying we have sort of dispatch wholesale sales, and then we have a retail sales arm that will do the right thing for the retail client.
You see, technically, I think a broker that acquires a certificate is a brokerator, but if it's an operator that becomes a broker, it's an opera-broker.
Complex.
I would just like to add, we've talked to a lot of active charter users, and what we found is that the folks that charter regularly, they know what they're doing. They make the same trips over and over again. They want to shorten the lines of communication. They want to be talking to the person or the company that has operational control of the airplane. They want to know who they can talk to when things get screwed up. They just want to be able to shorten that whole process. Also, we've learned that the corporate flight department or the private aircraft owner that needs supplemental lift, they definitely want to deal directly with the operator. They want to. There's very few corporate flight departments that we've talked to that use brokers. They want to know exactly who's operating the airplane that they're putting their folks on. So, I think what we're going to see as time goes on is that the more sophisticated charter user is going to start going directly to that operator.
let's end with a quick yes/no. Are direct-to-operator charter booking platforms technology likely to replace most charter brokers in the next 5 to 7 years? Joe, on the end?
That's going to be an augmentation. It's definitely not going to replace. We've been talking about that all day here. We need those tools to help us perform better. I got to tell you, it's customer service number one, and that's primarily why we see the clients we do. They demand more. They want that reputation covered, yes, but they want that customer support. We make it a real strong point that we have one point of contact for that flight operation. So anyone from the customer corporation always has one person that they can ask and see what's happening. We are just starting to get into the mobility, so we do have an app that keeps our operation team in constant contact with the aircraft and the customer. So I got to say, open communications is 100% necessary, and we got to use the different technologies to augment that, but never lose sight of that personal touch.
So that's a no from you, Greg.
All that being said, yes.
Boil it down. So I would say there is, I see operators that are leaning in on technology and that want to be better sales organizations and that, are embracing technology specifically to be better at sales. So I would tell you that there's going to be a shift towards operators controlling more retail demand and technology is going to enable that to a greater degree than it's done today.
So that's a yes, but I'm confused by the term operator. Is that like a broker-rater?
Well, there'll be more operators that are broker-raters, and those broker-raters are going to be using technology as lead gen and a differentiator to help attract those customers. So that's a yes.
So this technology is evolving so quickly. I mean, it feels like there's something new coming along in the AI space every week that is something you couldn't even dream of, right? So I think trying to project something out 5 to 7 years when we're talking about this technology is a little bit difficult. So I don't know if I can go yes or no on this, just because it is evolving so quick. But I will say this, though, and I kind of want to echo some of the sentiments here, is that, still, though, we are a relationship-driven business. So no matter what, you're still going to have someone with those relationships in place going forward.
Fantastic.
Hard no.
You can have longer. Everyone else has gone longer. You get top marks for
No,
sure.
I will add to it, because I think you might need to diversify yourself as a broker. I mean, it's not only the private jet. I think this target group that you have as a customer, they want more. They want to have the transportation. They want to have that house in Cabo. They will not book that to VRBO because they're going to want to have something very specific. So I think it's the whole customer experience that you need to focus on. So, no.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing. I mean, we have a platform where the process from start to finish. Now, having said that, if I'm booking a $30,000, $40,000 charter, I'm going to want to talk to someone. There's no doubt about that. But the technology's there. We're doing it. I know some other people are doing the same thing. So it's going to happen. It's not going to, the brokerage business is not going to go away because there's still some trips out there that are very complicated.
Yeah, and there's still some very successful travel agents out there.
Very successful, yes.
In these days.
Right. Well, the use of technology to help and the establishment of a sort of human dialogue as part of the transaction are not mutually exclusive things, right? So I think we have to look at this and go, technology and human relationships are going to be part of that next generation solution. It's just technology is going to help the people do a better job with those interactions with the customers.
But the big news, so the audience is split between which side you're on, but the big news is the majority think the term brokerator is here to stay. And on that, let's break for lunch. Stonebriar has arranged it next door. Thanks very much to the panel.